You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
You're listening to IRN, 2014 Border Zone International UFO Conference.
Dr. Javier Morales was born in Chihuahua City and raised in Odessa, Texas. He traces his family roots to the tiny community of Coyame, an hour's drive from here. The author spent more than a decade researching the history of the Coyame area, culminating in the 2012 publication of his book, Coyame, A History of the American Settler. His landmark book includes a chapter titled Unexplained Phenomena, which covers the reported crash of a UFO near Coyame in 1974, as well as other paranormal incidents in the area about which he will speak this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Javier Morales.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. I was at the hotel this morning with my laptop, real excited with my beautiful pictures on my PowerPoint, and some message showed up, file corrupted. I don't know what that means, but it did not want to work this morning. Maybe it's part of that border energy out here. Thank you for having me. I want to thank the city of Presidio and most of all Brad for inviting us and putting this event together. This is great. I have real long, hundreds of years of blood ties to this area, and so unexplained phenomenons and paranormal, that's always been at our dinner tables when we were eating dinner, and grandparents, great-grandparents, everything they would mention to us, and so that's nothing new to the people of this area. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a small footnote in the lecture series. The true UFO Coyame incident research will definitely give you more details, and that research is ongoing, so that's great for everybody here. That it's a pretty neat thing. And but I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about Coyame and be the background information to when they do talk about the actual incident. When I went off to be an eye doctor, I went to Puerto Rico. I'm originally raised in Odessa, Texas, and when I went to Puerto Rico, I was a little different than everybody else there. I was Texican, and so I kind of got a little homesick and started, understand that I was different, but in a way it was okay. And so I started doing research on where I came from. I didn't know where I came from, where my family came from. And over 10 years, I ended up being one of the experts of this area on the history of this area. And many people, including one researcher from Los Angeles, her name is, she just passed away, Elisa Luján. She was a big La Junta researcher. She gave me the idea to do the book. And so I did a book about the history of this area. It's not really just about Coyame, it's just mainly about the border and the people here. And so I'm going to give you that information I've found, and with that information you will understand how the people of this area interacted with paranormal stuff and unexplained things. As we know, Native Americans have been here for a long time. Written records show them being approached by Europeans around 1500 in this area. You can imagine the valor and the incredible tenacity of these missionaries on a little burro or sometimes walking, just documenting all the villages they found out here and all the natives. So around 1500 you have some missionaries walking through here and finding a lot of native tribes in this area. Once that happened, in Santa Barbara, which is the southern tip of Chihuahua State, you have mines being discovered there, a lot of minerals. That's going to be important in the future of why maybe there's UFOs in this sightings in this area. Well, when the mines were discovered, OSHA didn't exist and none of the safety that we see nowadays. So humans were more, pretty much, a lot of them dying left and right in these mines. And so they needed manpower, and so you started having Spaniards coming in this area and taking the Indians as slaves in the 1500s. And so a little later, in the 1600s, I think about 1680, you have a gentleman by the name of Juan Cortés del Rey. He was a knight of the Spanish king. He came out here, and he ended up, he was part of the Order of Santiago. He was one of the kind of bodyguards of the King of Spain. And he arrived out here, and as you know, I think Fort Leaton was called Santiago. It was maybe a mission back in that time period. Anyway, he ended up settles in an area 40 miles from here. And when he arrives, it's all desert, and then you have this valley with luscious, trees and a natural spring there. Everybody can hear me okay? I'm trying to pull back a little bit so you don't get that echo effect. Anyway, he arrives there, and he brings his wife there. In the area, he finds a tribe, which he calls the Cholome tribe. The leader of the tribe, he names Andres, giving him a Spanish name, and his last name, which the chief of the tribe, the chief said was Coyame. Well, the Spaniards ended up calling it Coyame. And so his name ends up being Chief Andres Coyame, and this was 1680s. Well, Chihuahua ends up finding some mines. Chihuahua City ends up finding some mines as well, some gold and silver mines. They end up being establishing a city there. Well, then from there you have another gentleman comes out. His name is Trasviña y Retes, which if you go to Ojinaga across the river, the main street there is called Trasviña, and that's why it's called that way. He comes in about 1715. He comes on with those types of expeditions. They would bring all their ice chests with them, which was like 300 head of cows. The cattle they'd bring with them. That was their ice chest. And so anyway, he comes down through this area, and he actually officially establishes this area. That was 1715. Okay, and so that's when the official name of Coyame, the town, is actually established. They do it. They make a mission there. The tribe and 10 families arrive. Okay, if you go to Fort Leaton in their little exhibition hall, there's a picture of that church in there. I saw it last night. I was kind of surprised. Anyway, those 10 families arrive, and as you know, when they arrived, there was a tribe there, the Cholome tribe, which I just mentioned. Well, then you have the mixing of the two cultures, which are similar. They're different, but they're similar. One of the things that is similar is the witches. As you know, the Spanish, they had the Inquisition, which they burned witches at the stake, if they found there was witches. But when you have these people in this, just kind of picture yourself, go outside right here and just look around. Imagine those in the 1715, and look at this. Right now you're isolated. You break your leg, you're in trouble in Presidio. You have a major car accident out here, you're in trouble. Go deeper into Big Bend Park. Break your leg in there. No cell signal. Who are you going to call? So imagine in 1715 out here, all they had was their customs, curanderas, which is a name is a name for a good witch. Then you have the bad witches, and so you have a lot of sorcery, which was all they had as medicine. Somebody got sick. They had to explain what was wrong with that person. And so in those days there was no doctors, and so you have to understand that clash of the cultures ended up being a new culture. And so when they were out here, they had to explain the unexplained. And so one of the things that even in this, when I was growing up and we would hear stories from my grandparents was, if you ever saw a white owl, that was a witch disguised as an owl. That could come from Spanish culture or Indian culture. Another thing is the remedies people would have was Native American and Spanish. That was very important to them healing, and so anyway, you have the mixing of the cultures. Then borders start changing out here. It was Spanish government, then it became Mexican government, and eventually United States government. And so the original settlers were soldiers that arrived, those 10 families. Later more people came. But this isolation is very unique, and amazing that we even have descendants from those people, because they survived. They survived out here, and if the land didn't kill them, the desert out here, the Indians did, all the way from the 1500s to the 1880s, constant Indian attacks, constantly being killed. As a historian, one thing that fascinates me is a gentleman, Captain Ronquillo. He was the original land grant owner of this area. And I was reading a diary of one of his soldiers the other day. Somebody got me, and that they found here in Presidio. And one of the things that was interesting was when he had a young family arrive here, they would go out and start building their little one-room adobe house. Young family, small kids, and instantly they would get a report to Capitan Ronquillo. Sir, remember the so-and-so family that arrived here 3 months ago? They just killed the husband and the wife, and they kidnapped the kids, the Comanches or the Apaches. And there he goes. He would load up at 10 o'clock at night. I mean, you know how dark it is out here? He would load up his cavalry at 10 o'clock at night and go look for those Indians. Report after report after report, in the 1700s. That's what they did. That was their job, the Calvary Soldiers. Imagine trying to run a horse through those mountains in the middle of the night with no moon. Imagine how tough that would be on the horse, it's amazing to me the history of that. With that gives you a little bit of history of why the people on the border here are like they are. That the term, pioneer stock. Have you ever heard that? Where it's just so tough that nothing ever, makes them complain about anything. And so that's what, the culture here, and my descendants, my furthest back is Jose Morales, and he was a cavalry soldier that arrived in Coyame, with that group. A year after they built that church in 1715, it probably took 10 years to build it. A year after that, the Apache came in and killed everybody and burned the church down. And so it was abandoned for a long time. It was probably rebuilt probably in the, probably mid 1770s, around there. It was rebuilt. There's no true, written report, but when it was rebuilt, the cavalry arrived, the Spanish cavalry, and they never burned it down again. Okay, so they were able to fend off the Apache, and in 1880, that same group of soldiers, the future generations, ended up killing the last Apache chief, Victorio, there in Coyame, and the rest of the Apaches were put in reservations in the United States, 1880, and so. That's a little history of Coyame. That's kind of why I was your speaker tonight. So today, when the true UFO enthusiast researchers talk to you about Coyame, you have an idea of where it is, what it's like. It's just kind of like here, just kind of isolated. But what you have in that little valley of where Coyame is, it's just there's a natural spring there that's been given water for hundreds of years. Right now they tapped into it, and that's their actual water source, and it hasn't run out. And then the whole town lives off that water source and farming too. And so it's never run out, that little spring. And so what I'm going to do now, that's the kind of the history of it. What I'm going to mention to you now is some of the items they said I mentioned in my chapter, Coyame phenomenons, because they might be tied into why there might have been a possible UFO crash in Coyame. The most common thing people mentioned is when you ask them, when you're there, and you ask them, have you ever seen anything weird here in Coyame? To them it's not weird anymore because they see it all the time. They see stuff all the time. And so when I was doing my research on the book, I would just ask people, hey, what do you want to contribute to the book? And the number one thing was, this weird stuff we see all the time. Can we talk about that? Just don't tell anybody I told you. They're real, they're Christian beliefs. You don't mix those things. You don't say you saw a UFO and you're hardcore Catholic. They don't want public people to know that. And so the one thing I'm going to tell you first is what my mom and grandma personally saw. My grandma is still, to today, she still covers her head to go into church. She's very, very traditional Catholic. And she never has agreed or disagreed with the stories my mom saw in her presence. And so I've never been able to say, Grandma, was that true? Because she never agrees with it. She thinks that's bad. That's the devil stuff, or And so the story was, the town, before they had plumbing, they built a big like a little river, a little water canal all around the city, and so the water would come out of that natural spring. It'd come down into the little canal, and then it'd go feed all the way around the town. So if you needed water, you didn't have to walk all the way to the spring to get your pail of water. You just grabbed it from the little canal. So it was 10 o'clock at night. My grandma wanted to get a little bucket of water before they went to bed. And so my mom was like 11. She said, here, come with me, honey. I'm going to go get some water. And so they both walked out of the house and were walking towards the canal. And as they were walking, my grandma was walking a lot faster than my mom. And my mom just kind of heard a noise, and she looked over and she saw a human body coming towards them. And so she says, hey, Mom, there's a man coming towards us. And then my grandma just kept walking. She's like, hurry, we just got to get the bucket. And then she said, Mom, that guy's coming right at us. And so when my mom looked again, she noticed the human body was actually hovering towards them. It was not walking like a human. It was just hovering towards them. And so she also noted that the head was not like a normal head with a neck. It was like no neck was present. It was like the head was just laying on top of the shoulders. Kind of, if you think about it, kind of like an astronaut suit. If you think about it, like the helmet on the astronaut just goes round and then it lands on the... So it's coming right at him, and my mom goes, Mom, this guy's feet aren't touching the ground and he doesn't have a head, or something's wrong with him. And so my grandma stops, looks at the man, he's approaching them, turns around, grabs my mom, and goes right back home with no water for the evening. And that's it. That's the story. Well, after last year when I was invited here, I did some research. Well, that's really common in the UFO enthusiast, is hovering humanoid figures. I was like, wow, I didn't ever know that. And there was one in Coyame walking through town at night, And so that's the story that my mom claims. I'm positive what I saw, just between you here and me, just between us at the dinner table. Don't tell anybody, And my grandma has never claimed that she saw it or didn't see it. I've asked her 250 times, Grandma, tell me. And she's like, I don't know what your mom's talking about. We just went to get water that night. I'm like, Grandma, but you didn't get any water. Why didn't you get any water? So anyway, that's a pretty neat little story. Okay, the other thing my mom has claimed she's seen in Coyame many, many times is some unique phenomena which are they call in the locals balls of fire. And so they would see these balls of fire on top of cottonwood trees near the creek or the river. They were always near the creek or the river. And so you would always ask the locals, well, what is that? Well, what do y'all think it is? And they're like, well, it's witches. When witches want to fly, they turn into balls of fire and then they fly. When witches want to play, they go and jump on top of cottonwood trees, and they play with each other up there. They play games. That's the locals. Okay? Well, when my mom was telling me this, and I told her last year when I was coming here, she said, you know what, you need to tell the crowd that I really think when I saw him, it might have been a spaceship. She said, because now when I recall looking at the ball of fire, it was not like a real ball of fire. It was just a real high energy, circular round thing that was sitting on top of the trees. Just sitting there hovering on top of trees. She said, but back in the day, before people actually even seen helicopters or airplanes in Coyame, how could they say it was a flying ship if they've never seen something flying in the air? And so my mom mentions that every time she saw him, she was always in the presence of somebody. And one of the times there was just a good old a pioneer stock man that's not afraid of anything. And he pulled out his gun and started shooting at this ball of fire. And so he kept running towards it, yelling at it, cussing at it, and shooting at it. And then it just flew away. But he was not afraid. One of the Coyame residents, he got out his rifle and started shooting as hard, as fast as he could to try to see what the hell is this we've been seeing for so many years, you know. One of the unique things about those balls of fire, the reaction the animals have when they see them. Dogs bark at them, you know. Cattle makes weird noises when they see them. So it's apparently not just the humans actually seeing it, but the animals also experience these balls of fire. Another interesting thing is people have seen them where in Coyame it's real common that the ground has a lot of energy in Coyame. And so you have a lot of just holes in the ground that emit hot air that comes out of them, you know. And so people have seen that hot air sometimes turn blue, like a blue hue coming out of the ground. And so people have seen them, those balls of fire next to those holes where hot air or blue hue gas comes out of the ground in the canyons. So there's a relationship between seeing the balls of fire, you know, along the river where there's water or creeks, and also coming out of those gases they see in the holes in the ground. One of the unique things I've seen recently in Coyame is there's an interest in mining. And so apparently there's been a new mine that was established there in Coyame, and I don't know if there's a relationship with, they found a lot of uranium in Coyame. So I don't know if there's a relationship with all these phenomena of possible UFO sightings with their uranium present in that area. You know, also when people have seen these hovering crafts, I'm going to tell you 3 stories of people that actually saw them that did look like a disc, flying disc. There's always been like a smell of sulfur when they saw this, which is kind of unique and interesting. The smell they would see, that they would feel when they were there. But anyway, there's a current mine that opened up, and that the main mineral they're pulling out is uranium out of Coyame, which is pretty interesting. Also, the connection with water. That's pretty much the only area of that whole section where there's water is Coyame. There's no, you kind of get out of there and it's just bare desert. But right there's the Conchas River and the spring right in that area where all the sightings have been seen. 1968, a family told me this story. They had just had dinner, and they sat outside their porch in the nice summer night, and huge craft came over their house. Flying disc, just how everybody mentions them. And not knowing what it was, the bright light just overtook their house. And the dad said, hurry kids, we got to run inside. The world's about to end. This is what the Bible says is going to be the end of the world. So they all ran inside. The huge blinding light. And, kind of just started praying the rosary. And, a few seconds later, it was gone, the light. But it was so blinding. The kids that were little that saw it told me the story. Okay? 1968. Another 1970s story is an uncle of mine. They were in a big industry in Coyame in the old days was Camellia Wax. They would pull these little cactus type of plants, and they would extract the wax, and they would sell it to the U.S., and they would use it as a type of waterproofing on wings of airplanes for the military, on military tarps. So it was a big industry back in the 60s and 70s. So he was out there with a team of men working, pulling out the Camellia wax, and what they had to do is just kind of camp out wherever their site was, their work site. And they were just there, having dinner on a little bonfire and eating dinner, and a huge round craft came right over them, and everybody started screaming like little kids, all these grown men, because they didn't know what to do, and it came right over them and just stood there over them. And what was interesting, my uncle said, is it didn't make any noise, the craft. For how humongous it was, it did not make any noise. And so all they did is they just all went into the fetal position because they thought they were going to die, and then a few seconds later they look up and it was gone. They don't know where it went. The third incident that people remember, when I was doing my book, I was doing a history book. I didn't really, not a UFO enthusiast book, but people just share this. You need to say this. This was amazing. I saw this. You need to put it in the book. And so just don't tell anybody it was me that I told you. I'm embarrassed to say I saw a craft. The other one was a group of teenagers that saw a craft come over the town as they were walking down a street, and they saw it, and it was coming closer and closer, and what they did is they grabbed sticks and rocks and started throwing them at the craft and yelling at it, and it just kept getting closer and closer, and they just kept throwing rocks, and then all of a sudden it just flew away from them, from the kids. These men are already probably in their late 60s, early 70s that told me this story. Another interesting thing that, might be part of the folklore or the witch sorcery is they see an odd-looking, huge black dog. A lot of people have seen that, multiple people, with eyes that look very odd. And so remember that when nowadays we know more about UFOs than we used to, or more educated about it. But remember in the old days, before there was media or newspapers or readily available books, people just, whatever they saw, they try to describe it with what their personal experience was. For example, a ball of fire. If nobody had ever seen a flying saucer, how could they describe a flying saucer? They would just say it's a real bright ball of fire. And so this odd-looking, horse-looking dog that has very odd eyes, that moves very fast, zigzaggy shape, is another thing that's very odd. And, all I have for you today is a ton of questions, no answers to all this. But people would say, that really scared me. You got to put it in the book. Multiple people saw it in the town that were living in the town. What is it? I don't know. That camping incident was next to El Tanque de Loya, wherever that is. They're like, you got it. That's where it happened. That's, write that down. So I people, it's amazing how they were so passionate about these stories. And so, any questions so far? I'm sure you have curiosity to go to Coyame now and say, where is this place? Yes, sir.
That dog that you're talking about, could that have been maybe a chupacabra?
Yeah, they just said it was an odd animal that, was an odd animal that had really odd eyes, And so, many stories of animal mutilation in Coyame too. There's a lot of cattle out there. Yeah, just odd glowing eyes. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And, any other questions so far? Comments? Great. I was telling Brad earlier that this festival is so appropriate for this area because, I was getting a little education about the Terlingua residents yesterday. Very, very colorful residents there, and so I won't repeat what the locals told me what they think of those people that live out there. But this is so appropriate, this festival here, because it's true. This is very unique, very interesting energy here. In the border, the people that live in the border, the many generations that have survived. That's the reason I'm here. We get, when I come, I'm like, I hope I find a restaurant. God, I get real nervous just because finding a restaurant out here, And so I think this is great that Brad and the city is putting this together, because it is part of the atmosphere here. I have one more thing to close with. June 20th next year, the weekend of June 20th, will mark the 300th anniversary of Coyame. The Chihuahua government, including the local government, is putting on a huge party that weekend. There is a type of Holiday Inn that was built there from some American investors. That's a 3-story hotel that's already sold out for the event. And so apparently it's a big deal. We will have our Coyame UFO experts there. We will have, confirmed or not confirmed, we have to say that in case somebody in the public is not really an audience member. part of the wreckage of the wreckage there. I had a phone call from somebody called me and said they have part of an odd material that you squish, and then it kind of goes back to its normal shape. It's very odd. So there's going to be part of the wreckage will be there. There will be also a tour of where the site is. We have permission from the owners of the ranch to have a tour if you like. We will also have that night with them, we're going to have a type of bonfire and bring out all the old timers for off the record personal stories of stuff they've seen there. There's going to be a lot of cultural events. Every night there's going to be a band playing. The ton of, food booths. The traditional Spanish rodeo. Just tons of activities. If you guys would like to come out. Next to that water spring I was telling you about, what they did is they reroute some of the water, and there's some 2 huge swimming pools. People jump in and have you can use those in the summer when you're there. They're underneath a bunch of 200-year-old cottonwood trees, so it's a really beautiful setting. Next to that is RV spots where a lot of people hook up their RV or just put tents. You could also stay here, and it's just like a 30-minute drive across the border into Coyame. It's through the old highway. The new highway, the toll, you have to go to the old highway, and nothing dangerous over there. Don't feel scared. Don't listen to the media. Don't listen to everything on the internet. It's nothing bad's ever happened out there. Yes, sir.
Tell us about the canyon that they'll go by to the point of Coyame.
Oh yeah, you'll get to go through that Pehuis Canyon, which is just beautiful, 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 breathtaking. They actually have like a rest area at the top, and you walk down on a path that has some rails, and you get down there, just breathtaking view of the Conchas River through the canyon. Really nice place. The locals are real open to people visiting, and any other questions? Like I said, I'm not a UFO expert. I'm just a historian and love the border history, and people just opened up to me. I'm sure I could write a book of everything. If I went in there and researched just the phenomena, I could write a whole book from Coyame residents and border residents, all the odd things. You have the Zona de Silencio, a little area that's kind of odd out here that radios don't work. I mean, you can do a book over and do a whole 2-day lecture over all the odd things in the border people see out here. Yes, sir.
Tell a little bit about the Coyame Cavern and then some of the history.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Coyame. They have some caverns that they discovered that there was actually a human homemade ladder somebody made before the Spaniards arrived. So the Indians were going in this canyon, and there's multiple rooms in there that the locals would come in on that ladder, go down in a rope, and they'd throw parties, like dance parties. It was so big, these rooms in this canyon. Well, later the government took over and they actually made it safe with lighting and guides, and you can go in there, and that's available to you too. Remember that there's a lot of history there too. The Mexican Revolution started in Coyame. Toribio Ortega was born in Coyame, which was the original leader that teamed up with Pancho Villa and started the Mexican Revolution. So that started in Coyame. The Apache wars ended in Coyame. We're talking to the Apache tribes to see if they want to come out and do actual peace treaty blessing of the site where the last Apache chief was killed. It's called Tres Castillos. That happened in Coyame too. We will have a distillery of Sotol. That's a very, very, very popular liquor that comes out of Coyame. There'll be an actual distillery in service so you can see how it's made. We will also have the Camellia Wax process in the process actually there, so you can see how they take the wax off the cactus type plant and make the product to do the waterproofing of many items. So there'll be a lot of educational stuff. You're welcome to go. My email I think will be on that website. If anybody else has any personal questions or anything else you might want to hear from me. Yes, sir. Yes, go ahead, ma'am. Yes. There's 2 questions. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to make a suggestion, and that is that if it's only 30 minutes south of here, that maybe there could be a bus that would pick us up and take us down there.
Great idea.
Bring us back, because
that'd be good for Presidio. Presidio might like to be involved in that.
but with all the stuff that's been happening in Mexico, we used to go to Mexico. I love Cancun and, you know, all the places.
Sure, it's whatever you're at your comfort level. But remember that from here to there, 30 minutes, you're not going, you know, it's just, there's going to be, the 90% of the people there are going to be Americans on that party. 90% are going to be Americans. Yeah. Yes, sir. June 20th. It's the weekend of June 20th, 2015. We just had a meeting last Sunday with the majority of the people putting it together are Americans, actually. They're the organizers. It's our roots we're bringing back to the town.
Yeah, but do you really think that Americans are going to feel safe crossing that border?
That's what I was telling you. 90% of the party, which is 4,000 people, are Americans coming.
But, you know, I don't know, some people...
I think I'm more in danger in Odessa right now. There's 2 deaths a day right now in Odessa. It is true. We have 36 traffic deaths so far this year. 37 deaths, traffic. And Coyame hadn't had a death in 40 years. So it's really your comfort level. I mean, the statistics are there, you know, but the odds are nothing's going to happen to you, you know. Yes, sir.
You mentioned there was one crash in 1974.
Yes, sir, and I was going to leave that to the guys because they're the experts in it. Let me just tell you real briefly because they're already telling me to get down from here. But I'm going to just tell you when I interviewed people, I didn't interview them for the crash, but everybody's like, here's a personal account that I know that I can share with you, but these guys are the experts. I was born in Chihuahua City, 1973. Okay, this occurred a year later. My parents, when they got married, my dad was from Chihuahua, my mom was from Coyame. They got married and they moved to Chihuahua. I was born there. I was a year old when my mom's brother called her, okay, 1974, and said, hey, there was this wreckage and we went over there and it was really neat and we saw a bunch of military there and we don't know if it was a drug running plane or not. Really neat stuff. We also saw a flatbed truck with something in it, something on top of it with a tarp. That's what my uncle called my mom. Back in the 1974, you didn't call. There was only one phone in Coyame. Very expensive to make long distance calls. He took the time to pay the charge to call her to Chihuahua to tell her. There's also a personal friend of mine, a personal friend of the family that's in his 70s, that says he was there when they called the police to go there and look at it. He saw the whole wreckage. But if you ask them to put on a book or to do a record with somebody, an outsider, they say, what are you talking about? There's no wreckage here. They have 2 reasons to be scared. Either it's mafia ties and they don't want to get involved with the cartels and snitch, or the government. If it's true the government, the U.S. government killed a bunch of Mexican soldiers to retrieve that craft, they're afraid to say, you saw something? Okay, come on. You're disappearing. You're not going to be here any longer. So that's the 2 personal accounts I have. So a lot of times people say, didn't you say you saw something? Oh yeah, that happened in the 80s, not 1974. And that's where it gets really confusing because you say, the 80s? No, we're talking about 1974, not the mid 80s. No, I was talking about the wreckage. I saw a plane crash in 1986. And you go, what? You're confusing me. You're like, yes, I want to confuse you. I'm a smarter border resident than you think. So that's what I think about the report. These guys are going to fascinate you, but I hope my information helps you understand the people that live out here. They want to be left alone, like the Terlingua residents. Just leave me alone. I'm a little crazy. Just leave me alone. Don't come to my house. Maybe we should retire down here and leave Odessa. But also to understand the culture, you know, that has to do with what they saw, what they can and can't say because of the church influence, and also that they might be smarter than we think, those residents. But if you go to Coyame that weekend, I don't promise you won't get kidnapped or beheaded, but you will have a great time, and we will have a personal tour with these guys of the site. We already have somebody many people that tell you, I'll tell you where to go, and off the record, turn your recorder off, let me tell you what I think happened. And you'll have that personal account. You'll see part of the wreckage that might be part of the saucer. And I think you'll have a great time down there. And you have my email, so if you guys want to ask any other questions. And thank you, City of Presidio and Brad. This is great. I'm glad you guys putting this stuff together. We need this stuff out here. Thank you.
You're listening to IRN 2014 Border Zone International UFO Conference.